When a heinous crime is committed and the suspect is apprehended, the first question that comes up is why? Some people have natural morbid curiosity and want to dig deeper into the minds of evil criminals. Others want to hear their answers to try to understand their actions, which is unlikely. These interviews with serial killers and psychopaths attempt to gain insight into some of history's most horrifying crimes. Regardless of how well the interview does or does not go, when suspects like these are under the center of attention, things can get really unsettling really fast. Number 5. 30-year-old Travis Alexander was a salesman in Mesa, Arizona when his life was taken from him on June 4, 2008. Months before his demise, Travis was dating a woman named Jodi Arias. Both traveled for work between Arizona and California and were often forced to hold a long-distance relationship, which inevitably caused a strain on them. Most friends and relatives of the couple described their relationship in a negative tone, suggesting toxic traits and abusive fighting. The couple were on and off, but in June of 2007, Travis broke up with Jodi for good. The pair still engaged in intimate activity together and would often hang out. The boundaries of their relationship were blurry, but it seemed that Travis no longer had feelings for Jodi, despite their ongoing affair. For several weeks in the summer of 2008, Jodi harassed Travis by blowing up his phone, randomly showing up to his house, and spreading nasty lies about him. This was all in an attempt to get back together with him, according to reports. Travis didn't budge though. Jodi found out that Travis was taking another woman on a trip to Cancun that she was originally supposed to attend. After thousands of calls and efforts to contact Travis one day, she showed up at his home once again. According to police, Jodi ambushed Travis while he was showering and attacked him, stabbing him 27 times and injuring his throat and firing a gun at him. On June 9, 2008, friends and relatives of Travis went to his home after being unable to contact him for several days. Upon entering, they immediately noticed the gruesome scene and found their friend lying on the bathroom floor. Jodi was later arrested for her involvement, and after years and a lengthy trial with countless twists and turns, she was convicted and sentenced to life without parole in April of 2015. Before she was officially found guilty though, this interview with Fox was aired on February of 2015. Despite witness testimonies that painted Jodi as a crazy, violent, and hyperactive woman, she appears very calm in this interview. She speaks in a barely audible whisper and has an overall sad demeanor, which is actually very creepy. At the time of the interview, it may have convinced a few viewers that Jodi was innocent, as she states the whole thing is just so convoluted. A psychiatrist once told me that people have a need to persecute others. Maybe that's what's happening here. She stands by her plea of innocence and puts on an impressive show for those that felt bad for her. However, now that we know the truth and Jodi has been convicted, the interview is just another unsettling document of a stone-cold liar. It's hard to believe that someone could commit such a heinous crime and then deny it with everything they have.
Expected, you think, this verdict?
It was unexpected for me, yes, because there was no premeditation on my part. I can see how things look that way, but I didn't expect the premeditation. I could see maybe the felony murder because of how the law is written, but I didn't. The whole time I was fairly confident I wouldn't get premeditation because there was no premeditation. I can understand that, I think, because of the lies that I told in the beginning to try to cover up this, cover up that, hide things that I didn't want to be known, made public. Mostly because I was scared, but I also didn't want certain aspects of my relationship with Travis to come out. And I was ashamed of what had happened, how it escalated. I don't know if there's really a word, at least in my vocabulary, to describe it, but I think mortified is one of the closest words, ashamed.
Number 4. Gary Ridgway is an American serial killer, currently imprisoned in the Washington State Penitentiary. In the 80s and 90s, the region of Seattle and Tacoma, Washington experienced a serious heinous crime spree involving the deaths of over 71 teenage girls and women. The crime spree sparked coverage in the media and an abundance of investigations. Early on, it was clear that most of the cases were connected, and detectives assumed that they were dealing with a serial killer. The unknown suspect was eventually given the name the Green River Killer, due to the location of where most of the remains were found. The details from case to case were almost identical. The killer would pick up women, usually sex workers or runaways, near busy street corners. He would chat with them and show off a photo of his son to gain their trust before assaulting them and taking their lives. In November of 2001, DNA samples found in 2 cases linked Gary to the crimes. He was arrested while leaving his place of work in Renton, Washington. While in custody and on trial, it was discovered that Gary was connected to at least 48 of the Green River Killer cases. He confessed to an additional crime and was convicted of 49 total charges. While his trial was still ongoing, he negotiated with prosecutors to receive a plea deal. Gary gave information to officers about other women that had not been found yet. In exchange, he dodged the death penalty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The interviewer in this session with Gary tried to dive deep into his twisted mind to expose answers for the burning questions relatives of his victims had. Gary, who speaks with a soft and thoughtful voice, willingly opens up about his thoughts, his life, and his crimes. It's almost eerie how calm and unemotional he sounds. At one point, he shares a story from his childhood about stabbing another young boy due to his violent urges and morbid curiosity. It's common to find that psychopaths and killers begin having dark thoughts at a young age, but it's still difficult to grasp the concept of an innocent child turning out not so innocent after all. Later in the interview, Gary confesses that his crimes were somewhat sexual in nature. The details are too graphic to share, but they add a layer of creepiness to the overall interview. While the main goal of this interview was to gain insight into the mind of a serial killer, to truly understand the motive behind the crimes, there's still no solid answer. For the most part, Gary seems that he felt out of control of his thoughts and desires. From the way he describes it, it seems as though he could have just been a victim of his own mind, which of course is debatable.
I didn't really think I had an urge to kill her, I just wanted her to stop. And
But what did you want to do to her?
what did I want to do with her? Just to have her stop and
But how would you do it? What did you think in your head about how you would do it? That's what we're trying to get at. When did you first think about treating your mom violently to get what you wanted her to do?
probably in 4th grade.
Okay, there we go. Fourth,
the 5th and the 6th was probably about that grade. And gliding together in my head when she was just laying down there, she was more of a sex object than a mother, and more the fantasies of having sex with her and nothing to have and to kill her. It was 2 different things. When she was always Dr. Jekyll Hyde, when she's down there, she's a sex fantasy, sex object. When she's up there trying to get me to read, and she's the other side of something I hated.
Number 3. A Nightline ABC segment from 2010 includes a face-to-face interview with notorious serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells. The interview digs deeper into Tommy's motives, methods, and history to expose the dark inner workings of a twisted mind. Thomas was a notorious American serial killer active from 1980 to 1999 in New York, Illinois, Kentucky, Texas, and Missouri. The cases pertaining to Tommy are especially vile and much too graphic to share details of. According to Tommy, he committed his first crime when he was 15. He broke into a home with the intention of stealing, but stumbled across a grown man forcing a young boy to perform indecent acts on him. Tommy said that witnessing the scene spiraled him into a fit of rage, and he killed the man. While this crime may seem like a serving of justice, it was just the first in a series of atrocities that Tommy would later take part in. In December of 1999, Tommy attacked 2 young children. Thankfully, one of them survived and made their way to safety. The victim later spoke with police and provided a description of Tommy. A sketch was released, and Tommy was apprehended soon after. Tommy was charged with 2 counts of murder, but officers believed that he was linked to more than 22 cases. His victims, their locations, and even his method of attack was seemingly random, making it difficult for investigators to connect all of the cases and declare the crimes the work of a serial killer. Tommy actually confessed to over 70 crimes, but investigators soon learned that he was trying to play the system in some strange attempt to gain fame, or slow the process of true justice. This is especially obvious in 2 cases Tommy confessed to. While the details he described were consistent with the cases, they were also identical to the information broadcasted by the media. When it came down to smaller, less significant details that were not made public, but that the criminal would be aware of, Tommy fell short and it became clear that he was lying. In his interview, Tommy compared taking lives to the act of doing hard drugs. He explained that his first experience with drugs filled him with the best feeling of his life. He went on to say that his first murder filled him with an even better experience. Tommy said that he started to chase the rush, and in other words, Tommy felt as though he was addicted to killing the same way that you could be addicted to substances. He also told the interview, "I am hate. When you look at me, you see hate. I don't know what love is. I have no feelings," which is a major sign of a psychopath. Tommy Lynn Sells met his fate on April 3rd, 2014, when he was executed via lethal injection. Before he passed, he was asked if he had any final words, and he responded no, and fell asleep before slowly fading away.
I did a shot of dope. It was the best feeling I ever had in my life. And the first time I killed somebody, it was such a rush. And it was just like that shot of dope. Every time I did it, it was that rush again. And I started chasing that high. I am hatred. When you look at me, you look at hate.
When I look at you, I look at hate?
When you look at me, you know what hate is. I don't know what love is. Two words I don't like to use is love and sorry, because I'm about hate.
I wonder if you could just tell me what happened as you were killing her. Did she give birth to a baby?
You know, you're pushing your luck.
I'm sorry.
Let's not get into blood and guts, because that's what you're trying to get into.
Number 2. This compelling interview from 2010 features the infamous American serial killer Edward Wayne Edwards. After being released from prison on aggravated robbery charges, Edwards allegedly began his 19-year crime spree, which spanned from 1977 to 96, and claimed at least 5 confirmed victims. Edward explained that long periods of inactivity also occurred during the span. Edwards' involvement with at least 5 cases were confirmed and used against him. The crimes occurred as 2 in Ohio in 1977, 1 in 1996, and 2 in Wisconsin in 1980. He received a life sentence as a result of the crimes he committed in 1977. Edward was found responsible for the 1980 death of a Wisconsin couple, known as the Sweetheart Murders. When the case first opened, Edwards was seen as a suspect and was temporarily held for investigation. Sadly, though, detectives lacked the necessary evidence to charge him at the time. But in 2009, Edwards' own daughter called in a tip that her father may have been responsible for the crimes. A DNA comparison between Edwards and the crime scene turned out to be a match. In 1996, Edwards confessed to the murder of a young boy that had been living with Edwards' family in a plot to collect insurance money. Edwards was sentenced to execution for this crime in March of 2011, but passed away due to natural causes before the execution could take place. This segment of the interview begins with Edwards explaining that he actually wanted the death penalty, and was disappointed with the justice system as they seemed to be dancing around the idea. He claims that he agreed to the interview so he could publicly share gruesome details of his crimes in hopes of being given the punishment he desired. After that brief intro, Edwards goes on to discuss the case of a young boy. He tells the story in a casual, chatty manner. It's almost easy to forget that he's talking about a heinous crime from his voice. A quick reminder changes that though, when he gets into the gory and shocking details of the story. The most unsettling part of this interview is just how little Edwards seems to care. With a monotone voice, a blank expression, and a detailed timeline, Edwards completely abandons any sign of emotion. One detective that spent time with Edwards had apparently linked him to an endless array of other infamous crimes. He claims that Edwards was the Zodiac Killer and was responsible for the John Bennett Ramsey case. There are, of course, nothing but unconfirmed wild theories, and just think of how appalling it would be to find out that this seemingly laid-back, disturbed mind was responsible for such crimes and managed to do an interview without spilling the truth.
Murder committed there in Geauga County, and I'm responsible for it, and I am wanting the death penalty. But it seems that everything that I tell them, I mean, it's substantiated. They know it's the truth and stuff like this here, but they don't want to, for whatever reason, follow it up or And it's just, that's why I decided that I would talk to you to try and get my point across. He had he did not know that he was going to get shot. I didn't threaten him in any way. I felt bad, but apparently not bad enough that I kept from doing it.
Number 1. Angela Simpson is an American murderer that was arrested on August 19, 2009 for the horrific killing of 46-year-old Terry Neely. Unlike many others on the list, Angela was only responsible for one crime. That one crime, though, is significantly more gruesome, disturbing, and downright disgusting than the others, though. The crime occurred in Phoenix on August 5, 2009. Angela invited Terry, who was disabled and confined to a wheelchair, to her home for a fun night. She promised him sex, drugs, and alcohol. When Terry arrived, he was met with a situation that mirrors even the most horrible nightmares imaginable. Angela locked Terry's wheelchair in front of a mirror and made him watch as she tortured, beat, and wounded him over the course of 3 long and painful days. The autopsy report performed on Terry reported countless injuries and attacks. Most of the details are far too graphic to discuss, but we can say that he was seriously wounded from head to toe. He suffered stab wounds, had his teeth pulled out, and was hit in the head with at least 3 items, and underwent numerous other torture tactics. Eventually, Terry passed away from his injuries, and Angela took his remains to a dumpster behind a local church, which she then set on fire. She was arrested and charged briefly after. Angela confessed to the crime and didn't hesitate to share the sickening details. She even stated that she wished he would have survived longer so she could have continued. She was given a natural life sentence, meaning the rest of her days will be spent behind bars. In this interview, filmed after her conviction, Angela talks about her mental illness, which supposedly played a part in the crimes. However, she seems more aware of her actions than most deviant killers. She expresses that she was happy to hear her punishment and felt that she got what she deserved. The interviewer asked Angela if she wanted people to feel sorry for her, but she said no, of course not. She clearly is coherent enough to understand that actions have consequences, but seems nonchalant about her fate. The only time that Angela seemed to get choked up during this segment is when her children are mentioned. She takes a long emotional pause before saying she wants to change the subject. However, she did offer the note that she regrets her children ever having to be around her, and claims that she was aware they needed to be in a healthier environment. When asked about the crime and all the cruel things she did to her victim, Angela describes her motive by saying it had to be done. In a sense, for reasons unknown, she felt as though she was simply performing a necessary task, an absolutely unimaginable way to see such a gruesome crime.
You're very upfront
Pretty much.
about talking about this killing.
Right.
You murdered this man.
Yes,
You tortured him.
of course.
There is no ambiguity, and there is nothing you want us. In court today, you said you're not here to pretend to be remorseful.
Of course not. Why would I do that?
Are you remorseful?
Not at all.
Why?
Why would I be?
Well, why did this man deserve to die? You claimed he was a snitch.
Well,
What proof do you have of that?
He told me he was a snitch.
He told you.
On many occasions. But that really doesn't matter. Why did you guys want to kill me? Phoenix wanted to kill me. What's the difference? Everybody has a reason to kill. My reason might not be good to you, but your reason wasn't good to me. So.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos. And if you enjoyed this narration, maybe consider checking out my personal channel at youtube.com/Ty_knots.